The sun's come out and Ray has planned to take the kids out. Since today isn't going to be too hectic for me, before I'm off to work, I'll just prepare them a picnic basket for some fun R&R in the sun. Right, so to get the dishes ready for the ladies and the kids for their picnic, I'm gonna make a ciabatta bread from scratch. Very, very simple, just 4 ingredients. I'm also gonna make a really nice sort of soft and smooth focaccia bread. I'm also gonna make Scotch eggs with a twist. And I'm also gonna make just a dead simple pasta salad. The first thing I have to do is I have to get my breads on, otherwise I'll never get the food there. Okay, so the first bread we have to get on is the ciabatta. It's 250 grams of bread flour, 1 teaspoon of yeast, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and then the 210 grams of warm water. Okay, so that seems like quite a lot of water. It seems like it's gonna be a very wet dough, and it will be, but that gives the whole characteristic of a ciabatta. So once we've mixed all of that together, it's come off the side of the bowl. It's now time to get it onto a work surface. And now you can see when I handle it, it's very, very wet, right? And that is exactly what a ciabatta is. Okay, so we've been working this ciabatta dough now, and you can see now it doesn't stick to the table, but it is still very, very sticky, right? We are now just gonna leave that in a bowl with olive oil, and it's gonna really sort of rise up. Leave it in a nice warm area, no draft, and it should double or even triple in size. Okay, so while I've got all of my flours and my yeast and my salt, I might as well make the focaccia. So, focaccia, again, is dead simple. 500 grams of flour. Then we're looking at about 20 grams of semolina flour. 2 teaspoons of yeast. And 1 teaspoon of salt. And then we've got 300 ml of water. We are gonna add quite a lot of extra virgin olive oil. Now, the difference between focaccia and any other bread is the amount of oil that goes into it. That is gonna give it that sort of silky smoothness. It's gonna give it a really nice elasticity. And we're probably looking at about 40 to 50 ml of olive oil. So again, we're just gonna pour that on. And again, we're just gonna bring it together with a spatula, okay? Out that goes, onto a board. And we're just gonna sort of bring everything together. So we're just stretching all of the flour just to work all of the gluten. And as I'm doing that, every sort of stretch I'm making, it's becoming a lot smoother by the minute. And this is why I always really like to make bread by hand. Okay, so this dough has really come together nicely. It's really sort of nice and smooth. It's nice and elastic. So we're now gonna add it into a bowl, just a little bit of olive oil underneath. And that's gonna go into the bowl and prove for about an hour. The difference between this proving and the ciabatta proving is we are gonna add a lot more olive oil to this. It might look like a lot of olive oil now, but once it's proved, It's really gonna soak everything in, and it's just gonna make everything a lot more smoother. So we'll wrap it up. We'll leave it for about an hour, and then we'll knock it back gently and shape it again. So in here, we've diced yellow pepper, red pepper, green peppers, some cherry tomatoes, and then some artichokes. And we're just gonna add that to the pasta salad. And the little twist is I really like to use just a little bit of sour cream. The first step to make these Scotch eggs is we need to get our eggs boiled very, very soft. And the best way to do that, the best way that I've found to do that, is to put it in a pot, cold water, really bring it up to a temperature as fast as you can. Once it's come to the boil, you turn it down, and then you leave it in there for about 3 to 4 minutes. Put it in ice water. So what the ice water is going to do is it's going to stop the cooking process straight off the bat. So the best way that I've found to peel them is just get a teaspoon and just gently tap them all over like that, just to crack the shells, and that's going to be easier for you to remove them. And the reason why we want the egg so softly cooked is because it's going to cook twice. If we have this overcooked and then we deep fry it again, it's really going to be overcooked. The yolk's going to be powdery. That's all of the eggs peeled. We'll just get them in the fridge and really chill them down. And the meat that's going to go on the outside of the egg is longanisa. I've got this really sort of nice vegan longanisa. We don't need the skin. So we're just going to cut it and open it up. And what we really want is just the meat on the inside. Okay, so that's the last of the longanisa, now sort of taken out of its casing. All we're left with now is the meat. So now to make it a little bit more easier to handle and just to dry it up just a little bit, I'm just gonna add some breadcrumbs. So what the breadcrumbs is gonna do is it's just gonna dry it up. It's gonna make it just a little bit easier for me to shape and to mold. And we just gotta get the hands in and just sort of work it together. It sort of reminds me of in season 3 when we went to vegan and actually saw them make the longanisa from start to finish. As soon as I'm mixing this, I can really smell that local garlic. I can smell the local vinegar, and I think that's what makes the vegan longanisa way better than anyone else, in my opinion. Okay, so all of the breadcrumbs have been soaked in all of that liquid. So now it's time to wash our hands and grab some plastic wrap. Okay, so now we've got a sheet of plastic wrap, and we're probably just gonna get about 80 grams to 100 grams of this beautiful longanisa. Place it in the middle, and then put another piece of plastic wrap on top of that. And now, gently with our fingers, we're just gonna sort of push it out until it's big enough for us to put the egg inside and for it to cover the whole egg. Make sure it's nice and even. Okay, so now that we've got the right thickness, we can just gently peel off, if I can find it, like that, which will leave a really nice, like sort of thin disc of longanisa just over there. To help the egg stick to the meat, we just need a really sort of light coating of flour onto the egg. And we're just gonna sort of shape it around the egg gently. Remember, the egg is super soft. And once that's done, we can now keep that in the fridge for about a half an hour. Okay, so now that the ciabatta dough has been proving for almost about an hour, it's like risen so much that it's actually broken the plastic wrap. We got our tray, and now we're just gonna knock it back a little bit and shape it. Okay, so characteristic of ciabatta is that the dough is very, very wet. We're just gently gonna work it. We're not gonna get too aggressive. We're just gently going to knock it back. Just knock all of those big air bubbles out. So now we don't want to add too much flour, because if we add too much flour, we are going to take the characteristics of the ciabatta away. And shaping a ciabatta is not as easy as what it looks. This is probably one of the hardest breads to make by hand because it is so wet, and we need to stretch it out just a little bit. So that is probably the size of the ciabatta. Just gently flour your hands, and now comes the hard part, and that's the shaping of it. Okay, so that's roughly the shape and the size we wanted for our sandwich. I'm just going to add just a little bit of semolina flour to it. And stand it there, and we're just going to pull it and shape it back to a really nice sort of ciabatta shape. When we prove the ciabatta, we're not going to cover it in plastic wrap or cover it with a tea towel. What we're going to do is we're just going to leave it like this. We really want the skin to dry out. So when we bake it, we have a really crispy skin on the outside and a really sort of chewy dough in the middle. Okay, so while I've got my mess out on the table, I might as well do both breads. So you can see how much it's risen. It's really sort of soaked in all of that olive oil. And now we just get a little bit of floured surface and just tip it out. Now again, just gently move things back. I'm now just gonna take it and leave it to the side. Now, focaccia is normally baked in a tray. First thing we have to do is we have to get quite a lot of extra virgin olive oil. And then we give the base a little bit of a season. So gently move this across, and we're just gonna lift it up, put it inside the tray, and now just with our fingertips, we're just gonna push it into the corners. Once I'm happy with that, I'll just give it a really good sort of dressing of extra virgin olive oil. And now, unlike the ciabatta, we are going to wrap this because we want it soft from top to bottom. So we'll wrap it in plastic wrap, leave it for 45 minutes in a warm place, and it should double in size. Okay, so now our breads have been proving for about 45 minutes. And you can see the ciabatta is really sort of plumped up. So this is ready for a really nice hot oven, 220. Probably gonna take about 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so now for the focaccia, we still need to do just a little bit of work to it. And now we're just gonna have to top it with whatever we want. Okay, so now that I've got quite a lot of olives, I've got quite a lot of these little sun-dried tomatoes in, it's now time to get the rosemary and then the salt. There's nothing neat about this, all just really nice and rustic. Okay, so rosemary's gone in. We're just gonna season it with quite a lot of salt on top. I really like that saltiness that focaccia gives. And we're just gonna gently just nestle everything back in just to make the rosemary stick to the dough. Okay, so the Scotch eggs have been in the fridge now for about half an hour, 45 minutes. They're really nice, firmed up. It's not gonna be easier for me to breadcrumb them. It's 3 bowls, eggs in one, flour in the other, and then breadcrumbs. Okay, so we've got the eggs in there. We just really need to whisk them up until they're nice and smooth. Flour, egg, breadcrumbs. So we get our first Scotch egg out. Flour goes in, dip it in the egg like that, roll it around, and then just dunk it in the breadcrumbs. Okay, place it on a tray, and then we'll deep fry them. Okay, so both of these breads are now cooked. It's been 20 to 25 minutes. And if it has a hollow sound, that means the bread is really cooked all the way through. And that is characteristic of a really good ciabatta. I know it's really difficult to resist the smell of fresh bread, but you need to leave it for 20 minutes before you can slice into it. Right, so all the food is done. I'm gonna pack this and get it to the lovely ladies and the kids so they can have lunch, and then I'm gonna pop off to work.
Next week is pretty special for me. My wife will be surprised when she gets home to a quaint candlelight dinner of her favorite dishes and a not so humble bouquet of flowers as we celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary. To get the recipes from the show, check out my website, markettomaster.com. And if you want to see behind the scenes and latest updates, follow us on Facebook and Twitter.